But sadly, I am not at all.
A 4-year-old boy is stealing hearts all across America with the national anthem.
All right, Fox News alert. Beto O'Rourke officially launching his bid for the White House. I'll pause.
This is a defining moment of truth for this country and for every single one of us. The challenges that we face right now, the interconnected crises in our economy, our democracy, and our climate have never been greater. And they will either consume us or they will afford us the greatest opportunity to unleash the genius of the United States of America. This is going to be a positive campaign that seeks to bring out the very best from every single one of us, that seeks to unite a very divided country.
All right, the former Texas congressman throwing his hat in the ring after losing his congressional campaign to Senator Ted Cruz last year. Beto is now the 12th Democrat to officially declare a presidential run.
Yep, we've got some more room on the screen. Beto became a political celebrity by turning to social media. Here you can see his Instagram right there when he was having his teeth cleaned. Nonetheless, yesterday we had a really good idea that he was going to do this because he sent a text to a local station down in El Paso where he used to serve on the town council, then eventually became a member of the House of Representatives, served 3 terms there. But what's interesting, and we just had the screen up that showed the people who are, and there he goes, surfing into a big crowd of supporters. For the first time in his political career, he's actually going to face serious pressure from the political left, because you know how primaries work. You know, right now it is a race to the left. You want to get noticed on the left, you try to out Bernie. So you've got somebody like Beto O'Rourke who says, I'd like to take down parts of the wall and that I like Medicare for all. How do you pay for that? Well, look for him to go to the left. And now he's going to have more pressure from people who are even further to the left.
Well, if you're a voter and you don't know much about him, here are some of his positions. He's anti-border wall. He voted against ICE, voted against Kate's Law, voted against the Trump tax cuts. He supports single-payer health care, voted against restrictions on late-term abortions, voted against sanctioning Iran, and called law enforcement the new Jim Crow.
He told Barack Obama when Barack Obama met with him after he lost in November, he said, the big question you got to ask yourself, can you deliver Texas? Can you deliver Wisconsin and Pennsylvania? And he said, I feel I can. If he can deliver Texas, he's got the nomination. That's going to be
That's a big if.
That's a huge if, because people have been saying Texas has been teetering for a while. Meanwhile, the big story at the University of Texas and USC, as well as Harvard and a few other schools, has been this wide-ranging bribery scandal. Right now, it's got 50 people caught up in it, including a handful of celebrities and a lot of CEOs, where they want to, at the nth degree, from changing, having people take their SATs and ACTs, to actually having coaches make room for them on rosters on non-revenue sports teams like sailing, track, and soccer in order to get their kids into schools they don't deserve to get into. And it is such a sweeping story that really affects almost every household watching right now, whether you're a parent wondering why you did it the right way and if you hurt your kids by not cheating like this, or your kid who's emerging and beginning to somebody that just went through the system and had to give up that dream college because you didn't get in or couldn't afford it.
That's right. They took the place of people who really deserved it. Actress Lori Loughlin, she was released on that $1 million bond. Husband also in trouble, same with Felicity Huffman, along with a bunch of other people. And there was a news story about where her daughter was when she was being charged. Right. Her daughter was down in the Bahamas on a $100,000 yacht.
$100 million yacht.
I mean, $100 million yacht that is owned by the president of the Board of Trustees of the University of Southern California.
That's right. TMZ is reporting that apparently the board, which he sits on, where Olivia Jade was on that Bahama cruise.
With his daughter.
Right, exactly. The board of USC will not decide the fate of the students in question. It's a question that will be answered by the president of USC. Now, here's the thing, and it's, these schools are in a pickle because according to the indictments, apparently a lot of the kids did not know what their parents were up to. So what will the school do? According to USC, they're going to review each case. At Santa Clara University, they said they would likely expel any student who knowingly participated. And they say if you don't have credible evidence, not sure it's ethical to punish the child who didn't know what their parents were up to?
I think it's a finite number of parents, kids that didn't know what their parents were up to. Plus, if the kids got in without knowing, they're going to get kicked out without knowing. So if they are going to school right now, there's no way those kids should stay in. It just doubles down the insult. Mark Riddell is also in trouble. He's the Harvard guy that's in his 30s now, who actually played tennis at Harvard, who basically was taking the test for all these guys at the IMG Academy.
He was 36 years old. He shows up to take a test for a high school kid. But then again, you got to keep in mind the proctors, in some cases, were actually in on the deal.
$200,000 they got.
There's a family here in New York. They spent $125,000 for their daughter. Listen to how they got the proctor. They paid this proctor to change her scores on ACT and SAT.
What was it originally?
So her original 600. ACT score was a 23 out of 36. Perfect score is 36. He changed it to 35. Or she. I don't know if the proctor's a boy or a girl. Almost perfect. SAT gave her a perfect score on math and a 700 in the literary section. I'm sure her teachers are like, hold on, how did she do so well?
That's kind of
we know what she really makes on her report card.
Kind of a red flag.
Dr. Drew Pinsky was on last night, and he said, listen, this is a bigger problem than just this.
All roads lead to narcissism. Really, we've had a narcissistic turn in this country for the last 30 to 50 years. When I first started working in a psychiatric hospital, I saw all kinds of different personality disorder diagnostic spectrums. Around the mid-90s, cluster B was all we saw. 100% of the time. Sociopath, narcissist, borderline. And if you are a parent, your child is an extension of you, and you cannot stand to see them uncomfortable. And so you have to save them from every discomfort. What their achievements are your achievements, so you have to make sure they achieve. It's a freaking mess.
You know what? It's not just the rich and famous. In the New York Post today, they talked to a college counselor who says that, you know, not rich and famous parents bribe and cheat and lie all the time to try to get their kids into school. The quotation is, I knew parents who whipped up a charity for their kid and did a fake photo shoot with disabled children. The parents set it all up and said the kid raised all the money, but truly it was a single donor. The parents, it was just a scam to get the kids into college. So it's not just the rich and famous, it's everybody's trying to help their kid get into a college.
What good does that do? What does it teach the child? That you can lie your way through your life?
Game the system. Here's what Tommy learned.
In full disclosure, I'd just like to say that I did sell most of my daughter's Girl Scout cookies, but she only did it 1 year.
I sold all my daughter's Girl Scout cookies.
What kind of lesson you teaching her?
In this building,
I sold my own.
I sold 300 boxes, but everybody knew I wasn't a Girl Scout at the time. Tommy Lahren had this observation about the elites.
This is really bigger than just this scandal. This is just Hollywood in general. These elitists really never think that they're going to get caught. They think that there's a separate system for them, that they deserve it, that they're entitled to this. Meanwhile, they preach all the time about fairness and equality. Why are we still giving these people a pass? Why are we still idolizing them? Why are we still allowing them also to be the instructors of morality and listen to them on a variety of issues? We need to throw it out. We need to pay attention to average Americans and experts and stop giving Hollywood so much credit.
This is going to grow a lot bigger than 50. I think we're going to be reporting on this for a while. The FBI is going to go to town on it.
Do you think if the kids who don't know, should they still get kicked? Oh, you said
absolutely.
You they
got to go out. That triples down on the wrong. You can't leave the kid in a school they did not qualify for.
I agree, but then that changes their lives completely. And
their parents already put their hand on the scale.
Listen, the schools are going to decide on a case-by-case basis. I predict that a number of the kids whose parents did stuff will continue to go to those schools. They might drop out because of the scorching spotlight.
Of course.
But Elizabeth Warren, now, this is somewhat ironic. Elizabeth Warren, who now famously misrepresented her heritage on an application at Harvard and on a Texas bar card, she's slamming these parents who lied.
This is just stunning. I mean, the notion that people thought they could keep cheating like this and evidently built this huge cheating network in order for the children of the rich and the powerful to make it into fancy schools. You know, to me, it's just one more example of how the rich and powerful know how to take care of their own and everybody else just gets left behind. I think that's wrong.
Wow, I think for people who didn't care about her using her heritage before, now they will because of this story. It just brings to light that you have to be truthful when you fill out these forms.
I just hope. I've never seen a story cross more boundaries than this. No one cares if you're a Republican or Democrat. Everybody knows this is wrong. Everybody has an experience directly or indirectly with this process. Even grandparents watching right now know what their grandkids are going through to get ready for a test. Schools you can't go to because you can't afford or can't qualify for. Sometimes people got to go to community college in order to get to a place where they have the academics to get into these schools.
Imagine if you applied to USC and you didn't get in, and then you watch the video of this young girl, Lori Loughlin's daughter, knowing she's on a $100 million yacht, which is fine. It's fine to make money. No problems there. You just can't lie. You can't use your status.
How many people inflate their resumes when they're looking for a job?
It's wrong. It's wrong to do that.
I'm telling you, a lot of people do it. How many people inflate their biographies when they apply to different schools or whatnot? Probably.
It doesn't
Let us know what you think about it. Friends at FoxNews.com or Facebook.
One of the reasons
character is everything.
Yeah, one of the reasons, Jillian, you got hired, you said you were an astronaut.
Yes, I did.
And I think that was wrong.
I definitely inflated, yes. Yeah. I wanted to be an astronaut when I was a kid.
That's good enough?
Yes.
Put it on your resume. That's good enough.
All right, let's get you caught up on what we're following here. And just moments ago, President Trump doubling down on his threat to veto the resolution to block his national emergency declaration. The president tweeting, quote, "A big national emergency vote today by the United States Senate on border security in the wall, which is already under major construction. I am prepared to veto if necessary. The southern border is a national security and humanitarian nightmare, but it can be easily fixed." 5 Republicans have said they'll side with Democrats. A manhunt is intensifying for a dangerous inmate who escaped custody twice. Travis Davis was last seen in Oklahoma when police say he stole a police car in handcuffs and crashed it. Before that, he allegedly kidnapped a woman and forced her to drive at gunpoint. Davis has been on the run since Sunday when he broke out of jail in Missouri. He was originally behind bars for several charges, including kidnapping. A major defeat for Johnson & Johnson overnight. A California jury ordering the company to pay $29 million to a woman who says asbestos in baby powder and other products caused her mesothelioma. Johnson & Johnson denies its talc causes cancer and is planning an appeal. The company is facing thousands of similar suits. Can you tell what this kid thinks about picture day? That's kindergartner Andrew Miles, caught mid-scream with his mouth wide open. His mother says she was shocked when she first saw the photos, and she never expected them to go viral. Andrew admits no one told him to pose like that, and he wants to do it again next year. There you go.
And you know what? He's our shot of the day. Look at that.
Thanks, Jillian.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Coming up straight ahead next, President Trump grounding Boeing jets after a deadly Ethiopian crash. Our next guest says those planes need to be redesigned from scratch. Wow.
Plus, California's Governor Gavin Newsom stopping the death penalty, calling it immoral.
And hopefully they'll very quickly come up with the answer. But until they do, the planes are grounded. The safety of the American people and all people is our paramount concern.
There you got the president yesterday halting all Boeing 737 MAX 8 and 9 planes from taking flight in the United States following an urgent warning from the FAA. Sweeping action comes after Sunday's crash in Ethiopia that killed 157 people from 35 countries, including 8 Americans. Here with the reaction, former U.S. Deputy Assistant Secretary of Transportation, Oliver McGee. Oliver, good morning to you.
Good morning, Steve.
Yesterday was quite a morning because on this program we were talking about how the FAA stood behind it, said it's absolutely safe. A couple of hours later, the president said, nope, they're all going to land and we're going to figure out what's the matter with it, if anything.
An excellent move by President Trump. He's backing aviation workers, flight attendants associations, as well as the flying public. Today, the flying public, Steve, is very relieved because this aircraft needs to sit down for a moment, and Boeing needs to look at the what we call a clean sheet design, and also to take a look at in the cool of the day and night to see if we can shift the center of gravity of this aircraft more towards the nose. Essentially what we have is an engine mount on the wing, and it's forward on the wing. And when the plane tries to climb, it's hitting a 14 degree angle of attack. And so the computer system wants to pull the plane down, nose down, and then the pilots are trying to correct it, and it has a waving action, and then ultimately you get into a negative stall, then the plane crashes into the ground.
And it sounds like the 2 planes that crashed were similar. the New York Times is reporting, and apparently some pilots have reported problems before. But Oliver, you just made it sound like, I mean, yesterday we were talking to some people who said maybe just a software fix. You're talking about changing the center of gravity on an airplane. That's more than downloading an app.
You're right. It's a clean sheet design, but also Boeing is also going to consider the option of the software patch. This is essentially what the FAA administrator was saying, but they're cautious because essentially you're trying to use the data between the two crashes and see if you can correct differential lift on the engine in its current position. If they can't get that software patch to look at the differential lift that's coming from the engine, which should not happen, Steve, then they're going to probably have to consider remounting the engine in a different position and moving the CG towards the nose so we can have a better center of gravity of the aircraft.
All right. Well, thank you for making it so simple to understand. Oliver McGee used to be with the Department of Transportation. Sir, thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Good to have you. All right. Fox News alert. A mob boss found murdered outside his New York City home. Was it a hit? We're live there next. Plus, feeling the pressure at home or work, this Marine vet knows a thing or two about mental toughness, and he's going to put him down overnight outside of his house.
Was it a hit? Robert Moses from our Fox affiliate in New York is live near his house in Staten Island. Robert?
Stephen Ainsley, we are talking about the reputed head of the Gambino crime family, and you can see where police are focusing their attention. This is the crime scene this morning, and that's his home up there at the top of this hill, that brick home with the light on, and it appears as though the front door is open. That's where police have been focusing their attention. Shortly after 9 last night, police tell us that 53-year-old Francesco Calli, who's better known as Frankie Boy, was shot multiple times in front of his home. He was taken to the hospital and pronounced dead. Cops have been combing this area for evidence throughout the night. We've seen them shining flashlights and taking pictures as well. Calli may also have been run over by a blue pickup truck in addition to being shot, although that has not yet been confirmed. An autopsy is expected to be performed today. That will tell us exactly how he died. Police haven't named any suspects, they haven't made any arrests or released any description of who they are looking for. Now, this murder recalls a far more violent time in New York City history. It's the highest profile killing of a mob boss since Paul Castellano was shot and killed outside of a steakhouse in Manhattan back in 1985. That paved the way for John Gotti to take over leadership of the Gambino family. But again, this morning, Frank Calli is dead. Police still looking for his killer. Steve, Ainsley.
All right. Bobby Moses in Staten Island. Robert, thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's hand it over to Brian.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about the mob. It's good to know they're still killing each other, I guess. All right, 25 minutes after the hour. If you're under pressure, dealing with difficult people at home, at work, or even in social media, listen up. Our next guest, U.S. Marine Corps veteran, sharing his secrets to mental toughness for you. He's also an emotional intelligence expert. Eric Rittmeyer's here. Eric, can we all learn to be mentally tough without enlisting?
Anybody can become mentally tough. That's the great thing about emotional intelligence and mental toughness.
All right, you break it up into 4 categories. Number 1, when it comes to feelings, you say, don't let your feelings get in the way. What are you talking about?
Unfortunately, a lot of people, the gut instinct for any type of situation they're in is to let the emotions get the best of them. They respond emotionally, and when you respond emotionally to a situation, unfortunately, you're going to do something you probably regret doing.
So when someone attacks you personally or professionally, even about your family, how do you turn down the internal emotion meter?
It's difficult to do. It definitely requires a lot of practice, but basically it's a matter of trying to shelf that initial feeling and understand that I'm feeling an emotion. I can't react emotionally, or I'm going to say something I'm going to regret.
What's wrong with acting emotionally?
Look at politics right now. You'll see the problem with that. Yeah, unfortunately, emotions, just you're making bad decisions that way.
You also say to suspend, I guess in the Marines, they scream at you and they try to get personal and they want you to overreact, and that's part of boot camp. They're willing, you say you have to be willing to suspend your disbeliefs. What do you mean?
Yeah, I mean, again, go back to the current political environment. Unfortunately, there's a total inability to suspend a disbelief. You believe what you believe, I believe what I believe. I don't want to hear anything. Stop talking. I believe it, you're not changing my mind. That's the problem.
So how do I change that?
You have to internally find a way to take your belief and set it aside and try to understand where somebody else is coming from a logical standpoint.
How did the Marines put that in you?
They beat it into us, actually.
In what way? What do you mean they beat it into you?
They meant mentally beat it up.
They make sure they just put you through the paces, and when you overreact, you're not passing. When you underreact, you are.
Absolutely, you cannot do things based on emotion. You have to weigh that out with logic as well.
So compartmentalize. You talk about common ground. What do you mean?
Finding something in common. I think Dan Crenshaw, the congressman, is a prime example of this. He lost his eye. He basically had Chris Evans come to Capitol Hill for some veterans issues, I guess. Apparently, politically, they don't agree on a lot of stuff. Dan actually changed his eye, his glass eye, to be the shield for Captain America for Chris Evans. Political views were very, very different. They agreed on something, veterans issues. It's finding common ground. It's compartmentalizing feelings to find things you agree on as opposed to focusing on what you don't agree on.
And if you keep your emotions down, you're able to think clearly. If your emotions high, it clouds your judgment.
They're inversely related. As emotions go up, logic goes down and vice versa.
And the other thing to keep in mind, too, how often do you lose your temper and regret it? Almost every time.
100% of the time.
You never say to yourself, I'm so glad I flew off the handle.
That's the best thing I ever did. Right. I'm glad I called you a bad name.
So you have something else that I think is so lacking, especially as I watch these freshman congresswomen and men come in now. They're not listeners. They came in talking. I look at Cory Booker, for example. He didn't say a word for about a year and a half. It's like, I'm new here. And you watch these other freshmen walk in, and they came in talking. You say, be professional listeners.
Yeah. We have an innate need to be understood, to be heard. Unfortunately, we're horrible listeners. Mentally tough people, they listen with the intent to understand, not with the intent to reply.
Right. And also, I think when you listen and you respond, people bond with you quicker because they know that your views matter.
We're very simple humans.
All right. And it's simple in a good way.
Simple in a good way.
All right. So you want to be mentally tough? Where do we go?
MentalToughnessSpeaker.com.
All right, and he did it through the Marines. You don't have to because he did. Eric Rittmeyer, thanks so much.
Thanks for having me,
and
Brian.
thanks for your service.
Thank you, sir.
Straight ahead, the video is insane. You got a plane nearly slamming into a truck on a highway. What the driver is saying about that close call. Plus, Pete Hegseth, who I know, going one-on-one with Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen. And she's got a strong message for Congress about the border. Pete is here live. Trust me, I just saw him. Oh, there he is.
There's a dream for everyone.
We're at 1211 Avenue of the Americas, Freedom, as you look up towards Central Park on this very busy Thursday on Fox and
I always love that shot. You see the American flag. This is where we work, and you can look up and see the trees in the park.
And on a good day, you can see the Wendy's sign where you could walk into the subway.
Or the Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, Pete Hegseth is here. I remember you last hour. What else did you do?
What else did we do? We got out of the woods.
You left the woods with the vice president.
With the vice president. We went into the training facility, which is a Customs and Border Protection training facility. Before we were in the woods with the vice president, he was taking a tour of this facility, talking to Border Patrol agents and other folks. Kirstjen Nielsen, who's the Secretary of Homeland Security, was there with us. And she's in the middle of this debate. Is it emergency or not? How should the Senate vote? Right. What's actually happening down there with increases in apprehensions? We asked her all about it. Take a listen. Madam Secretary, thank you so much for joining Fox and Friends. We appreciate it.
No, my pleasure. Thank you for being here.
As you know, there's a big vote in the U.S. Senate about the president's emergency declaration on building the border wall. Your take on where that sits right now?
I think it's a moving target. I know what I have been talking to members of Congress about, which is, in my mind, it boils down. It can be complicated at first blush, but it really boils down to two questions. Does the president have authority to declare an emergency? He does. It's statutory authority that Congress gave him in a law. And secondly, is there an emergency? And I could certainly talk to you and anyone who's willing to listen about how that is a definitive and resounding yes. And
this administration putting a focus on the border, yet we're seeing apprehensions go up. Why is that happening?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, if you boil it down, it's Congress, courts, and criminals. The criminals have found a way to take advantage of the situation. They're trafficking, smuggling, they're preying on the migrants, but they're also selling them a bill of goods. We've had some unfortunate court decisions. They clearly did not understand either the authorities in some cases, but more importantly, the operational effects of the security concerns. And then three, Congress continues to fail to act. This is not a partisan issue. It's not partisan to want to protect communities. It's not partisan to want to secure our border. It's not partisan to want to secure our homeland. And yet, in this environment, Congress refuses to act.
Recently, you took a lot of tough questions from mostly from the left side of the aisle. Your critics of the approach of this administration, what are they getting wrong about how you're approaching border security and things like family separation. They keep talking about cages. What are they missing in your approach?
Well, two things. One, I would say we're a law enforcement agency, so we enforce the law. You know, I've said it before, but I really fear for our democracy when the body who creates the laws is telling the body who enforces the law, just don't enforce the law. If they don't like the law, they should change it. But the men and women at Department of Homeland Security have sworn an oath to protect communities, to secure the homeland, and to enforce the law that Congress passed. The second one is there's just a lot of misunderstanding. Many of the policies and the ways in which CBP has been protecting our community for decades are the same. They're just suddenly now political and partisan. But these are the professionals who've done this for 20, 30 years, oftentimes at risk to their own lives. This is what they say we need to do to protect the border.
Madam Secretary, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you for being here.
We look forward to taking a tour with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Pete, great interview, but this is clearly a full court press by the administration to get as many Republican senators later today to vote against the resolution of disapproval.
They're trying to make it a zero-sum vote.
Right.
If you vote against this, forget about the precedence argument or the idiosyncrasies about Senate procedure. Either you're with the president on border security, you want that wall, period, or you're voting against it. And the point they make is, good luck going back to your district or your state as a Republican senator in this Trump era.
To explain that.
To explain the fact that you voted against the president trying to build the wall that he said he would bring. A lot of pressure. Well, I know the vote, a lot of people think it will go against the president. We shall see how it actually unfolds today, because that's a tougher vote for some senators to take.
And the thing that I hate most about what's going on with Kirstjen Nielsen, they treat her with such disrespect on the Hill. When the message he carries is just what's going on at the border. She hits him with numbers. They hit her with personal attacks.
Spite. I mean, you watch the testimony against her. It's dripping with condescension. They're angry, and they take every bit of hate they have about the Trump administration on her.
Well, remember
she handled herself very well.
Remember when they had that meeting and Nancy Pelosi and all of the Democratic leaders were interrupting her when she was trying to explain all the numbers and why?
Well, they don't want to hear the facts. I mean, and I asked her that as well off camera. How many folks are coming to actually watch what happens or see this training facility? Very few, unfortunately, from the left.
And if you say kids with cages, it started with President Obama. These are kids in facilities who come across the border, and they can only stay there for 20 days.
And Pete, if people who were sleeping when you, if you missed the interview with the Vice President, we're going to show it again.
Coming back around in the 8 o'clock hour, more with the Vice President
in the woods
near the training wall. Yes.
In Harpers Ferry, West Virginia?
Harpers Ferry, West Virginia. Training
Lovely area.
Good
All right. Thanks, sir.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
All right. 21 and a half minutes before the top of the hour, and Jillian now takes us to Arkansas.
That's right. Good morning. Yeah, let's go there for this story. Arkansas and Utah, actually, are one step closer to passing the nation's strictest abortion bans. Lawmakers in both states sending bills to their governor's desks that would block pregnant women from getting abortions after 18 weeks. Utah's governor says he will review the measure before making a decision. The governor of Arkansas supports the legislation. California's Democratic governor takes convicted killers off death row.
Do we have the right to kill? And that's a deep and existential question. I don't believe we do.
Gavin Newsom signing an executive order to suspend the death penalty, sparing more than 700 inmates over moral concerns. Friends of Laci Peterson are outraged.
How is it humane how Laci and Conner died? Do you think Scott was humane about how he ended their life?
Laci's husband, Scott, was sentenced to death after murdering Laci and their unborn son back in 2002. Look at this. This is dash camera video capturing a driver's very close call with a crashing plane. You can see as the small plane barely misses a tow truck as its wing skims across a highway near an airport in Canada. The plane crashing into a ditch on the other side of the road. Incredibly, the pilot and passenger were not hurt. The driver of that tow truck says he felt so lucky after this, he bought lottery tickets. Wow. So a college basketball coach, let's excitement get the best of him. Just watch this.
Like you and Watson and Roby storm.
University of Nebraska head coach Tim Miles tripping and falling down while celebrating his team making it to the Big Ten tournament. Miles laughing off the tumble, eventually getting up and making his way to the locker room. Look, I fall victim to incidents like that all the time, so I feel his pain.
That's what you have to do, though. Even if you're
showed it.
But even if you're in pain, you just got to get up and like own it. And be like, yeah!
Pretend
The
I'm
crowd
fine.
loves it. Yeah, if you broke your leg, then just hobble into the, into the locker room and then call 911.
All right, thank you, Jen. Thank you.
Jillian, yeah, thank you. All right, a powerful bomb cyclone turning deadly. It blows across the country. Colorado State Trooper Daniel Groves hit and killed trying to help a driver in blizzard conditions.
In South Dakota, powerful winds nearly blowing a man away there, as you can see, as he's trying to launch a weather balloon. Don't know why, but he tried.
Meteorologist Janice Dean would never do something like that. She tracks the weather full time. Hey, Janice.
Hello. You know, this was an historic blizzard. I want to show you where it is right now because we had 100-mile-per-hour winds across the Plain States. Incredible. It dropped 33 millibars in 24 hours. That is a bombogenesis, my friends. Big deal. We still have high winds across the Plain States. The potential for tornadoes, flash flooding, and heavy snow. So blizzard conditions across the Plain States. There are some of the wind gusts in excess of 50 miles per hour. All right, look at this amazing crowd that's with us today. Hello, sir. How are you? What do you have here?
A great book that I bought here in New York City.
Oh, my gosh. Mosley Sunny, thank you so much for coming. Wave to Steve Ainsley and Brian inside the studio. Can I brag for a second, guys?
Janice, we have a big congratulations to you. This morning you got some good news. You're number 12 on the New York Times list.
Yay,
Mostly Sunny is mostly great.
It's all because of you guys. Unbelievable. Listen, I'm a kid from Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. This is a dream come true. I'm not going to lie. Can you pinch me? Pinch me. Yes. I'm not dreaming.
America has embraced the Canadian. That is the big story.
There you go. It's a great book.
That's awesome.
All right, thanks, JD. Meanwhile, Jay Leno says he's tired of the politics on late-night TV.
It's all very serious. Everything is just so I just like to see a bit of civility come back.
Not much of that these days. Turns out Johnny Carson saw this coming decades ago. We got the tape. We're going to play it for you coming up.
Plus, Beto O'Rourke is in the race, but does he even have a chance of getting the nomination?
Of El Paso, Texas, is now officially running for president. The progressive Texas Democrat released this video about an hour ago.
I'm running to serve you as the next president of the United States of America. The only way for us to live up to the promise of America is to give it our all and to give it for all of us. We are truly now, more than ever, the last great hope of Earth.
Fox News chief national correspondent Ed Henry joins us now to weigh in. Does he have a shot?
Nothing bigger than that. The last hope of Earth. Right. I hadn't heard that one before.
There's bigger planets, but that's a big thing.
He has as much a chance of, 20 or 30 other people who have gotten in. This idea that because he came close in Texas, that Texas is in play in a presidential election seems like a stretch. But where I hesitate is, look, this guy has an it factor that Republicans shouldn't sleep on. He met with Barack Obama before jumping in. Democrats want to fall in love again. They want to find somebody who's going to be their great hope.
He did a show with Oprah.
Sure, and they're all in on that idea. But I have to tell you that President Trump has to be sort of licking his chops at the idea of facing someone like this who has no accomplishments in the House, runs for the Senate. His big ticket is, I lost. I came close to beating Ted Cruz. Yeah, he raised a lot of money. There's a lot of excitement. Again, I don't want to minimize that. But what I would say is, if you want to run against President Trump, who won on the idea of standing up for the forgotten man and forgotten woman, do you really want to launch your campaign on the cover of Vanity Fair magazine? Well, nothing screams middle America like Vanity Fair, Manhattan magazine. Come on.
He says that he's a generational shift like JFK, and he's got the honesty and decency of Jimmy Carter.
Well, look, in the video, he says, I'm going to run a relentlessly positive campaign. Why is he doing that? He wants this election, Beto O'Rourke, to be a reaction to President Trump. And the idea that, look, President Trump's on the attack, he's on the attack, I'm going to be relentlessly positive. Problem is, we know from House campaigns, Senate campaigns, and presidential races, negative politics tends to work. Right. And so can a relentlessly positive candidate win? This president in 2016, first in the Republican primary, defined all of his opponents to the point that he tore them apart.
And in the article,
so can Beto survive?
In the article, he talks about how he wants to unite Americans and he wants to work with Republicans and listen to them. But when the rubber hits the road, you've got to look at how they vote. I mean, he was anti-border wall, voted against ICE, voted against Kate's Law, voted against Trump tax cuts, supports single-payer health care, voted against restrictions.
Doesn't sound like a lot of working together.
I'm trying to see how he's reaching across the aisle. You make a good point, Ainsley. And I also think it's deeper than that. Think about what happened when the president had his event down in El Paso. No accident that he did it in Beto's backyard, perhaps.
Right.
Some people were saying he was trying to knock Beto out early. So Beto has a counter rally. There's a dispute about who had more people and all of that. But two interesting things. One, Beto O'Rourke had this fencing around the stage where he was and everything. And it was like, okay, so you need a fence and security and all that around you, but you don't want a border wall. And then remember, he did an interview after all that in which he said, I don't just want to oppose new wall. I want to tear down what's there. Tearing down what Barack Obama supported, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, basically. He wants to go further extreme to the left on the wall than anybody else in this race. That's going to be hard in Middle America.
Well, he's in Middle America. He's in Iowa today for the next 2 days, so let's see what happens.
Good luck.
Ed, thank you. We'll see you this weekend.
See you this weekend.
Still ahead on our show, if I read the rundown right, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy will be here live. We'll talk to him.
Plus, Jay Leno says he is tired of all the political jokes on late night these days. But guess who saw it coming? Mr. John.
Everything now is, if people don't like your politics, everyone has to know your politics. Now it's all very serious. Everything is just so I just like to see a bit of civility come back to it, you know. All the comics, Jimmy and Colbert and everybody else, it's tough when that's the only topic out there.
And he used to be balanced. Former Tonight Show host Jay Leno calling out the politics of late-night comedy, and it turns out his predecessor saw it all coming.
Join us with reaction now. He is comedian and founder of the Loftus Party, Michael Loftus. Michael, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning. How depressing is that to watch? It's such a bummer.
What do you mean?
I mean, it's like, you know, Leno wants to go back to the days of yore. Carson did a great job. It wasn't political. And now that's all it is. Just politics, politics, politics. And Republicans are always the butt of the joke.
Well,
it's just...
You know what?
It's sad.
We've got a soundbite in an interview with Barbara Walters back in 1984. Johnny Carson, who would make fun of Republicans and Democrats, whoever was in power, he would poke them. He had this to say about the dangers of getting too serious with your politics and your comedy.
I think one of the dangers, if you are a comedian, which basically I am, if you start to take yourself too seriously and start to comment on social issues, your sense of humor suffers.
And when you look, Michael, at the country right now, we're pretty much split down the middle. If you take a position on a social issue, you, as a business model, are alienating half the audience.
Well, that's true. And if Carson would have done that back when there was like 3 channels, if Carson would have alienated half the country, there would have been hell to pay. He would have been ruined. But now it's just this one-sided, lopsided, the right is horrible.